So thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to begin. Welcome to everybody who's tuning in. I'm Emily Zayden from Craft in America. And just before we start, I wanted to mention that that we do have two episodes coming up in our PBS series. One is called Democracy and another one is called Storytellers, and those are going to air nationwide on PBS starting December 11th. Check your local listings. I also wanted to mention that the next talk after this one is with George Rodriguez, ceramic artist, and that's on December 4th. And you can find information about that on the Craft in America website. So again, John is a phenomenal force, incomparable for those who know him, and he's been a part of the Craft in America community for quite some time. His incredible career over so many decades is something that he's going to try to summarize to some extent in this talk. There's so much to cover, and we are looking forward to seeing what you've managed to pack in. I wanted to mention that John and this talk are in honor of the inauguration and debut of the exhibition that's currently in the Southwest Terminal at LAX, an exhibition organized in conjunction with the Department of Cultural Affairs. And the show is called LA Made. It features John's work and the work of several other LA-based craft-oriented artists. These are some images of that show. You can visit the virtual exhibition for that show on craftinamerica.org, and that will be installed at LAX through 2021. So we hope that people will be able to travel or at some point next year, and we'll hopefully have a chance to see this. And in addition, John's work is also currently in our windows at the Craft in America Center, so safely visible for anyone who's interested, and also in our virtual exhibition of Democracy 2020, Craft in the Election. We were so proud to have a chance to show John's work. It's an honor. And with that, I just want to mention we all know what a passionate and enthusiastic person John is, and I can only imagine what you must have been like as a teacher, knowing what you are on this other level, and how you feed that into your artwork. So take it away, John.
Okay, I'm going. There it is. That should be it.
And thank you.
Okay, let's begin. Okay, 55 years in art and 76 years of age. Okay, so welcome and thank you for coming. Whoop. Okay, there's just a few, and I'm doing a little bit of intro here of my first 15 years of life, because it really sets the tone of where my life thinking process goes. So I was born asking questions about everything, wanting to know everything. Why are we here? Where are we going? What are we doing? Where do ideas come from? How are things done? My mind has never stopped questioning and searching. This is an actual picture my mother took of me meditating about 6 years old on a boat and fishing. Kindergarten for me was short and sweet. I went for 1 week. Within a week, I decided I didn't need to be in school, and I didn't like the teacher. So I walked home 1.5 miles to my house. Nobody was there. That did not go well with my father. And my mother helped me. She loved me. She got me into another school. So life went on. My first kinetic sculptures were made with from broom handles. They're fishing lures. Here you see them. I always drew and painted. This is an early watercolor. I was 12 years old. It was just a gift that I was born with. I had born with a couple gifts. One was the ability to render and to form things artistically, and athletic abilities. So with that, they got me through life. So this is the watercolor. This is the aluminum platter that I made in shop. The drawing on the inside is a drawing I made of a rose and then engraved it in the platter. I was 13 years old. Okay, this is a drawing of a buck that I when I was 12 years old. And I love seeing the little dates down here in my little pencil, my way of signing something, JGL. Rufus King High School, there was no art in the 50s, 40s and 50s. You got to remember, I was born in 44. Okay, so during this era, post World War II and the Korean War, the pressing concerns were polio, Russia, nuclear war, air raid shelters. We had air raid shelter practices, the Sputnik, communism. Academics emphasized math and science, and for me, football, wrestling, and track was my way out. It got me into college and through college. This is where I lived for 15 years in a rundown section of Milwaukee, but we loved it. It was occupied by people on the edge. We loved that. It was a segregated community, basically by economic and social pressures. The house we lived in was here. Just before we left, it was going to be demolished, so we left the neighborhood and moved to another area. This is our playground, the alley. Across the street, when you looked out of the front window of our home, was a 600,000 square foot shoe factory. Started hammering out shoes at 7 in the morning and quit at 5 in the evening. Behind this building was a calf slaughterhouse and a chrome plating factory. Okay. It was really a fun neighborhood because there were a lot of things to see and explore. 1 block away, when you looked out our front window again, you could see our free transportation around Milwaukee, the freight trains. The fences weren't here then. We just would hop on a train and go where we wanted to go. Put on your seatbelts and get your eyes ready to roll. This is a picture show. I got a lot of images I want you to see, so they're going to speed through. Okay. Where do ideas come from? For me, I've always played, okay? Played as a child, played as a 20-year-old, doing what got me into college, a college education, and in entrance into the art world. And I'm still playing here at 20, in 2020 at 76 years old. Okay. First college for an athletic scholarship was North Central in Illinois. I stayed there 2 years. They shut down the architecture program, so I left. Came out to California, Thousand Oaks in 1964. Okay, went to California Lutheran College. I came out the summer before that and worked at my sister's restaurant and did construction. And then I also, the training camp for the Dallas Cowboys was at Cal Lutheran, so I was able to participate in learning from them what I was really interested in, which was football. And this is where my life with art began. Ceramics, sculpture, painting, drawing, printmaking, etc. These first works seem a little bit dreary and dark, but this is the way life was at the time. Okay, this is an etching that I made in 1964 at 20 of a self-portrait. This is a painting of a self-portrait of me, 1965, and this is a photorealistic painting I did of my father, just to show you that the diversity and the ability that I was gifted with. My art is inspired by my world, my life experiences, and what I saw on my neighborhood streets. These are the first large sculptural pieces I did. This was at Cal Lutheran. This is the very first sculptural project. The professor gave you 1 class period to finish a little model of something that he gave you. It was the old European École des Beaux-Arts technique. He was a European professor who had come to the United States. These, for me, represent a lot of different titles, but Vietnam was the big one at the time. Okay, as was the end of the war, World War II, photos in concentration camps you saw in Life magazine, and the stories that my professor there told me as he was in concentration camp in the Netherlands, in Vught, in the south of Holland. Okay, so these pieces relate to all of those feelings. This also from the Dust Bowl. My parents would tell me about the difficulties in the 30s. And as I said, we didn't live, I thought it was a great neighborhood, but other people didn't. Okay, Dachau was another influence because, as I said, I'd heard about the concentration camp things that were going on. Here at Cal Lutheran, I learned the pottery wheel. This is one of my very first pots. You can see how funky it is. Okay, and these are pots that I experimented with there. during the year and a half that I remained there. At that school, we only used earthenware clay, and the glazes were cone 017 to cone 06. We made these little weed pots. Okay, you remember those? Well, some of you won't remember the 60s. I'm sorry, that's right. So in those days, they had little pots you bought and you put a weed in them. And no, it's not that kind of weed. Okay, so get that out of your mind. It's just for small openings, for small little objects. The birth of my life as an artist began. UCLA, 1967 and 1969. Worked on my MFA in ceramics. I pursued 3 separate areas. One was functional ceramics. Okay, one was organic, nature-inspired forms, and the other were sculptural forms. Very, very different, as you'll see. These are some of the functional forms. This is anybody need anything? My garage is full. Okay. These are the organic forms. They were inspired by rocks, by nature, by seeing things outside. They involve different processes. Raku process down here, salt glazing, and then regular glazing. These are wheel-thrown forms, and they're altered and paddled. You can see they're all smaller, about 12 inches. This is 24. These are by abstract sculptural forms up to 1969. Many of these were influenced by my philosophical pursuits. So to talk about each of these pieces is a dissertation in itself. Intense depth philosophical meaning that meant nothing to anybody but me. Okay. In 1969, I was invited to De Koninklijke de Porseleinen Fles in Delft, Netherlands. That is the Queen's Royal Blue Delft factory. This is the factory in Delft. This is the courtyard. They were infamous for establishing blue Delft painting, the blue plates. They established in 1635, okay? And they were still in business when I was there, and they're back in again now, because Goldie and I visited this last summer. So this was their moneymaker. Now, after World War II, 1945, they built a division for architectural ceramics, and that's the division where I worked and I was employed. Okay, my first project there was to build this assignment for David Hayes, a sculptor friend of mine in New York. It was commissioned by the Rockefellers as a gift to Elmira College in New York, and this is 1969. This is still there. Goldie and I have visited it when lecturing at Corning. All projects start from drawings. This was a painting he sent us. After he sent this, he came and talked. We made these little models on the floor. If you can see my arrow pointing them out down on the left, I'll get to that. The project, once you realize it and you make the model and you get the idea of what you want the form to be, then you'll begin. So several tons of clay. These are made just by smashing the clay on the floor, hammering it with mallets, walking on it. You can see cutting the forms. And then it's cut up, bisque fired, and glazed. This is the finished product. This is in 10 sections. And they will be mounted on steel panels and then hung up, which they are here. And you can see where the panel lines are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. There's 10. Okay. Okay. We built other large ceramic commissions, design in collaboration with European and American artists for destinations worldwide. This was a project in Germany, a school. This was a site in France. This is the police station at Delft. This is a detail of a tile work by Carl Apple. It was 50 by 150 feet. So scale was where this work was. These are some of the pieces I did there. These were inspired by some early stuff I saw by Jacques Lipschitz, because I wanted the pieces to be elevated. They're deep, philosophically profound, but later. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. This is one of the exhibitions I had in a museum in Apeldoorn, the Gemeentelijk van Rechem Gallery in Apeldoorn, Netherlands. And this just shows you the black and white. These are some of the pieces that are in it. Some of these are larger pieces. The centerpiece is 32 inches in height. These were made to sit on, as these are stools to sit on. So next. Okay. My position at the Porseleinen Fles led me to do collaborative work with many artists and corporations, including the architects for the Munich Olympics, but most importantly, the Leerdam Glass Company. That's where I got my first contact with glass. So this is 1969. And it's also where I met Marvin Lepofsky for the first time. And we exhibited together at the Eend Gallery in Amsterdam. So these are some of the pieces that of glass that were going on. In 1971, forced by marriage incongruities, I returned to Los Angeles and got a teaching position at Harvard School, now Harvard Westlake School, to build an art department. Okay. This allowed me financial security, and I also was a single father. Yes, men do that. And I raised my son. Okay. Here I continued my ceramic work for 42 years there. And then I continued my ceramic work, began another MFA at UCLA, and that class was taught by Fred Marcus, not Dick Marcus, but Fred Marcus, Fred Marcus, Harvey Littleton, and Mark Pizer. Okay, and that was a few years there I spent. The first glass blowing that you learn is to blow functional glass. So this is some of my early functional work. So, and that was necessary to learn the techniques, to master the techniques in order to be able to express yourself. This is one of my very first blown pieces. You can see how funky it is down here. Okay, and we use melted bottles sometimes because batch in the early 1970s was not massively available and was not that cheap. So I explored sculptural forms, but most important for me too in exploring those forms was to think scale and to think technique. You have to have the technique down. You cannot speak without a vocabulary. That's so important. And a lot of that's lost today. So you have to understand the process. And that understanding of the process while you're doing it opens up new doors of expression. So these are some of the sculptural works I did there. This was kind of a turning point for me. I was bending glass in a small kiln and seeing these glass forms bend. This piece moves, it's kinetic, so it rolls back and forth. So I just turned that piece on its side and I said, wow, if I could make that 10 feet tall. But nobody had furnaces to do that then. So you got to build a furnace next. This is the first furnace I built. This is a 4x4 foot car kiln, 10 feet long. So I was able to begin to do the larger pieces. And this was made from two dumpsters, garbage cans that I got from for free from this dump yard. Okay, this is the big kiln I built in the early 80s. I designed it and I built this kiln. And you can see how to build your own on my website. You can just go to it and there's a build your own kiln website. So you want one of these, you can build it. It lifts by a forklift and that's me standing inside. You'll see it being used in a little while. Where do ideas come from? For me, drawing was an integral part of everything I did. So drawing, the line originating from studies of the female nude. Now, if you study this contour line, you'll see the function of these subtle, somewhat sensuous lines. This is my Goldie 39, my mom 78. She was a real sport. Okay. Okay. So as well as drawing, I did ceramic modeling, nudes, and photography. So this is stepping ahead, but this is where that contour line idea comes from. Once again, from the drawings and the photographs. But you see the origin of the idea here. That's important. Okay, from that work came a torso series. It was an influence for the abstract work. And on these pieces, you can notice the etched lines. My interest, once I started doing this, was discovering the quality of one of those lines and the movement in one of those lines. So my intent then became to how do I isolate those lines and bend them? So these are some of the other slump glass forms. This is how the process is done. I'll run through this quickly. The ceramic form, the model is laid underneath. This is the detail. You see the cast ceramic forms under it. Okay. The car kiln is drawn closed, rolled over the pieces. The gas is turned on. You can look inside and see the process beginning. Okay. The process takes about anywhere from 4 to 6 hours to slowly get the temperature up so you don't crack the glass. You'll see that later. And this process is done between 1100 and 1400 degrees Fahrenheit, and it needs to be observed all the time, especially when it gets toward the heat temperature, the bending temperature, because you need to know when to stop it and anneal it. So you stop it, you anneal it, and you take it out, and there's the form. This is that form completed. And these are other manifestations of that, including research with the ceramic forms, fully ceramic forms of the male and female nude, as you can see. I hope you can see this little pointer working here. Okay, now the line is abstracted from reality. So here, on these glass dresses, okay, that I made, you see this contour line. The quality of that line is reflected in this form. Where do ideas come from? Observations, drawing, ceramics, photography. The line becomes the form becomes the line. Okay, the glass dresses and hats in this picture are for a fashion show at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in the 1980s. I was invited to do these. It was a fashion show, a charity show for fundraising for a local LA group. And also from the 1980s to the 90s, I did commissions and windows for Saks Fifth Avenue and Macy's in San Francisco, Beverly Hills, and around the USA. These are some quick examples of that. So we use the models and display the pieces in the windows. I did a series of these 10-foot tall pieces for the stores, and they were at the entrance of the store with models around on the plinths, okay, and then placed around the store at elevators when you went up, so you had to see them. I did hats and jewelry, ceramics, glass. This is a copper tubing. You can see the results. The hats, transparent, and a brown glass. Okay. Now, line and form and line. From here on, the torso series pretty much is gone. It comes back in commissions, this idea does, but this is the form I asked you to remember before. So you see how this undulating line over here and then the repetitions of lines and how these transgress to these. Okay. Next steps were these. Okay. Total abstraction. I began to decorate the surfaces, became interested in moire patterns, and I explored the use of neon. This is one of those examples. This is how the process is done quickly. The molds are laid in the kiln. These are tubes, steel tubes. This is ins paper laid over the form. The kiln is turned on and the glass is bent, taken out and annealed, and you watch the process they showed you before. This is for small kilns to do small little models. You can use pipe, you spray it with kiln wash, put the glass on it, and then bend it. And this is what happens when the heat goes up too fast. So, mistake. Okay. I actually went where my mind took me, following my intuition and continuing to play. Okay, so here you see nothing to do with the female form anymore, but just geometric forms and abstraction. And I attribute this a lot to my kindergarten work. Seriously, the work of Friedrich Froebel, okay, because I was taught Froebel's policies in kindergarten in Milwaukee. His kindergarten was established in 1838. And he was the founder, actually, of abstract art. And there's a lecture of me talking about that on Craft in America. You can find it. Okay. The bending process for the arcs is simple. You have, if you want an arc 3 feet 6 inches high, you have to have a piece of glass 8 feet long, ins paper on the mold. You balance that piece of glass perfectly on the pipe. You turn the furnace on, you watch it bend, hope it doesn't fall off, and then you take it out later. And also mistakes here, a little too much heat. Once it begins to flow, you're done. These are a movable series pieces I did. And these were maquettes for large projects I wanted to do. Haven't gotten anybody to spring for them yet. But these are how they work. They're open here, closed. This is, you can see the hinge situation here. Open and closed. This is open. This is a single one, not a movable one. And these are 2 more movable ones. Okay, you can see here, the closed and the open, and see how the interrelationship of the forms react once you see them together. You get all kinds of refraction, reflection, different visual aspects because of the movement of the glass and the shapes. These include slumped glass, enameled glass, float glass, bullseye glass, stainless steel, copper, and brass. An I-beam series, another venue. These for me expressed the tension of the I-beam holding everything in. Okay. That for me was Congress, life, the government, constricting the movement of the people. The glass for me was the people, me seeking freedom, trying to get out, trying to escape. That's a little tangential, but that's where the idea comes from. Another series, cable wrap series, another social comment series. These are expressing the constriction of the world around us, especially the government. This series really began with Iran-Contra. I started making them with Iran-Contra. It began with Vietnam. So this piece by itself was at the show LACMA, Made in America, 100 Years of Artists in California, 1900 to 2000. This is 12 feet tall. Okay. And it was entitled April 92, the LA riots. This piece, Ode to Branch Davidians. I love this piece, but it was destroyed in the 93 earthquake. It was 7 feet tall. This is another series to explore light for me and how light changes line in relation to time, space, and movement. And you can see that with these slides. So this is a 12-foot piece of glass, okay, welded steel form. So you see the glass and the shadow here. So the shadow is just as integral as the piece itself. The shadow is talking to the line and to the piece as it moves, changes around. You can see how varied that gets. And for me, that was incredibly interesting. Okay, this is another piece showing you the two different movements that light and time have. Flat glass wall piece, float glass wall pieces, arcs and waves. This piece is 40 feet long, okay, and 15 feet high and 1 foot deep. This is a piece, you can see Goldie standing there, and you get a little bit of relationship to the size and scale of it. So the intent was just to explore, once again, line and form. For me, the arcs, the waves. You see the different interpretations here. I did a lot of these pieces. I did a lot of other work, but this is very short summation. Okay. Another series, continuing the pursuit of line, but in a little different methods. This was fused. These are top ones are fused glass wall pieces. They're bullseye glass. They're stringers. And then the glass is, you cut the glass, you pile it into the kiln on top of a clear piece of glass. You throw it all together, you turn the furnace on and you melt it. And that's seriously about the way it is. You know, you can plan them with great integration. And a lot of people did that. But these for me are just more about spontaneity and the spontaneity of line. These pieces are slumped wall forms. You saw in that little kiln example a process, how these are laid over the pipes and then bent. The variation in the angle of the pieces is done by moving the angle of the pipes. So you can see those here. So those are simple lines. These are more complex slump forms. Another series, integration of clay, glass, and metal. A commission, you get an idea of where it is in sight and what it is. So these, my work, I decided early, I needed to work in permanent materials, permanent that didn't need to be for people to come back to when there's a problem with them oxidizing or rusting. So I worked in ceramic, glass, stainless steel, and stone. So these are the pieces. This is 5 feet by 5 feet. This is a studio piece. This is a studio piece too. This is 8 feet by 5 feet. These are large commissions. This was done for Loeb and Loeb in 1987. This is 15 feet wide and 5 feet high, ceramic, solar cool glass, and the float glass. These, I did 4 of these for Hewlett-Packard in Mountain View in 1988. And these are 5 feet high, 20 feet wide, and 20 inches deep. For me, the scale, for you to kind of comprehend the scale is important. The following are images of a few a few commissions over the past few years. Okay, this was one of the early ones, Atlanta, Georgia, 1985, for a lobby piece for Cooper Carey and Associates. I'm just going to go through showing you some of the pieces and a minimal definition so you get an idea, you know, of the quantity of the work. So this relates back to the new drawing forms. These are totally abstract. This was done for Princess Caroline of Monaco, commissioned by Redken Corporation, 1985. Project for Melbourne, Australian, 12 feet high, for the an area in the entrance of the large new hotel that was built there. This is a private residence in Lake Tahoe. You can see this was a brass base. This was a brass base. That's by request of the client. I preferred stainless steel because the brass, no matter what you do with it, is going to oxidize and change. This was a piece for Stephen Chase. This is one of my first really big commissions. This is 24 feet wide, 36 feet wide, 24 feet deep, and 12 feet in high, 10 elements of glass for the Kohl Center in Irvine. And it's still there. You can walk through the piece. When you walk through this piece, you enter through the doors, you walk through the room to the elevators here. So you enter through over here, if you can see that, walking through the pieces to the elevators. When you looked up, the ceiling I requested was polished stainless steel. So when you look up, you see the repeat of this piece upside down. You can visit it if you want. This one is available too. This was the developer was Barker Petronelli out of Houston, Texas. The architects were Skidmore, Owens, and Merrill. And this is a plaza on a fountain above the parking complex, but it's accessible from the street 24 hours a day. This fountain is 60 feet wide, 8 feet high, and 12 feet deep. This is the maquette. It's so significant, and I'll explain that in the last series of slides, the role that the drawings in the maquette play. Without them, you don't go to a project. So this shows the maquette. This is the project. This is the reflecting pool. It's a little different view. Now, one of the concepts I was really wanted to stress was sound. Okay, so with the design of this, the water comes over the weir, and it's a very soft, soothing sound. I didn't want the soft, soothing sound. I wanted the sound of water rapids, kind of subtle rapids. So I designed, and then we cut this irregular edge in there in the granite. And so now when the water comes over, it kind of roars minimally. And that is echoed behind these columns, these walls, like an echo chamber. So it comes out into the plaza, and it's really very pleasant. Here you see it at night, see the water coming over and how that's affected. And here's a detail of it at night. This is a project for San Diego area. There's 4 panels. When you walk through this piece, that's the significance of experiencing it. Okay, you enter through the front door. So on the left is these waves. You see them down here on the left. On the right are these arcs. So you walk in, you stand between this piece and that piece. There's the arcs and the waves. And the background are solar cooled glass, slumped. So you're looking into a mirror and seeing another mirror. There's infinity involved in continuously going back and forth into depth with reflective surfaces. Once you pass through this, get onto the elevator, you see this side here on the left and this side here on the right. This is how they're done quickly. 10-foot, 6-inch pieces of glass laid in the mold, put them in the mold, shut the kiln up, bend them, take them out 3 days later. Fiber optic lighting. This was another project we worked on. This was a proposed project for Rancho Santa Fe Del Mar area. It was to be 12 feet high, 24 feet wide, and 3 feet deep. The idea was neon, but it was not able to be done. Way too expensive. We ended up not doing the project because of the final cost anyway. But it was proposed with this lighting transformation. So it has a rotating system in it, and the light rotates through all of the colors, primary and secondary colors visible to the human eye. So here you can see it white, then it moves to the green, from the green to the blue, etc. down. So we experienced with fiber optic lighting, didn't use a lot of it, but that's coming back now and it's really big. Okay, these are 3 movable screens I did for the Inner City Arts program in Los Angeles. It's a nonprofit school in downtown LA for the impoverished ghetto kids. And I was a founding member and worked with them in the first years. It began in 1989. These I made and donated. The source of the idea comes from Froebel's kindergarten. The primary forms: circles, squares, triangles. The Bauhaus picked this up. It was their symbols for the Bauhaus too. I lecture on that too, if you're interested. Okay. Arnold and Mabel Beckman Scripps Research Center, La Jolla. This is 1996. Water, light, sound, and movement. This is a 5-story atrium, which you can see on the left upper corner here. This is the piece itself, 60 feet wide, 12 feet high, and 10 feet deep. This is the view from the side. You get a little bit of the scale. The water on this one is a subtle sound. So it comes out from underneath. And if you look on the lower right here, you can see the water coming out from underneath the upper black granite plinth. So it comes out and creates a soft, subtle sound, which in this atrium, 5-story atrium, is really pleasing. I entitled it Inveniere, to invent. I like to use Latin terms. Makes people think that I know something. Okay, this is a little bit complicated to see, but it's an important piece. It's 24 feet through 2 stories of the house at the Cam residence. This is the first floor. You start in the bottom floor. You start walking up. You see number 1, go to number 2. You're moving up around the piece. So you see a different angle of the piece, different aspects of it, differently how light affects the piece, the shadows. Number 3, you continue to walk up the piece here. And if you look up, then you see slide number 7 down here. And this is the upper part, so we'll get there. So you're walking up, 3 up to 4, you walk around, continue up, and all of this is visually changing, and there's reflections on the walls around due to the light. Okay, you see the piece coming up further, and here you can see the shadows on the floor. Then you get to the top and you get to look down and you see it. But if you look up to the right, you see this again, which is this. So there's the top of the stairway. You come up, and this piece guides you to the exit or to the entrance if you're coming in the house. So if you come in, you see this, then you're guided down to the lower floor. This is the piece that for the Brand Library Gallery in Glendale, done in 1986. Chris Lee and I did this and built this for an international architectural conference and lecture series in LA that we did. Let's see, this is 12 feet high, 30 feet wide, and 90 feet long. So you get an idea of what's happening here. This is the entrance. Transmutation was the title, to go from dark to light, basically, from one form to another. Entrance here, walk into the darkness, come around, experience the light, reflections, the shadows, the lighting, all of this continuing around, seeing the levels through the pieces and coming out this way and exiting. Okay, now this is a coincidental, just take this little in the hand. This is where Goldie was first made aware of the artist, John. Okay, she became my 3rd wife and I her 3rd husband. A week after that, during that exhibition anyway, I came on my blind date with Goldie. Okay, so we went to dinner. Vicki and Gary Tron set us up. It's a familiar name to Harvard people. So we went on the blind date, had a great evening, had dinner. After we were done with dinner, Vicki and Gary said, well, let's go to the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel and have a cocktail. So we walked over and valet parking. You walked up the stairs and Goldie starts talking about this artist she saw at the Brand Library. She says, wow, what to say? She's over there. She says, wow, I love this artist's work. I saw it at the Brand Library. So Vicki and Gary are standing over here and I'm next to Goldie over here, and Vicki and Gary look at Goldie and say, Goldie, that's John's work. You saw John's work at the library. Okay, end of slide. Okay, that was it. Blind date, 5 years later, there we are here. How many years is it? 2 minutes. Oh, she says too many. 36. Okay, here we go. This was the maquette too, so you see the importance of the maquette for the idea. Next, this was a gate. I designed the gate in relationship to the structure of the house, stainless steel. I wanted this project to have a little bit of visual confusion to it. You look at the surfaces here, you get a little transfer to the detail here. This is polished stainless steel, mirror stainless steel, reflective surface. This is transparent glass. What I wanted is for the viewer outside to look at the pieces and kind of get confused as to what is transparent and what is reflective. And if you can see the piece, if you ever get down there, and it worked for me, and it worked for the patrons. And I also thought that this would be interesting because the patrons then could see outside through the gate if somebody was there. Commission for Carnation was named Carnation at the time, then became Nestle's, 1990. Okay, 12 feet by 12 feet. There you see the piece was at the end of this hallway. We installed it with a helicopter. Another story. Okay. The incredible story is we got this piece back for nothing. About what, 5 years ago, Goldie? Yeah, they called us and said, we're gonna just put your piece in the trash. We're renovating the upper floor. Everything goes. If you want it, you can come and get it for free. Yes, for free. Needless to say, we had to get there within 2 days. We made it. I got a crew. We had to saw the piece to get it out of the building, the structure, but we did it, put it back together. Now it's in the studio. It's available for somebody. Okay. This is some of the ideas that came off of that Nestle's Carnation piece. These are in the studio now. This is about 10 feet by 10 feet. There you see me in scale to the piece. This is a smaller pedestal piece, still coming from that same idea. This was a private client, Tim Kroll. He actually was the CEO of Nestle's at the time, and a very good friend. Tim and Peggy became good friends of ours. This was for one of their homes on Balboa Island. Ceramic, handmade ceramic tiles, glass, and kiln-formed glass, and the solar cool glass. This is reflective distortion. And so you can see the complicatedness of the piece and how everything is in it. You got to understand that every one of these pieces is made by hand, stainless steel, polished, and I made them. This is a 25-foot tall piece that we did for Sheridan Ball Harbor. Okay. This is a 10-foot tall polished stainless steel cylinder that I had fabricated. Everything else we made in the studio. It's self-explanatory. Okay. Synchronicity, bringing all things into uniformity and collectiveness. Private residence in Malibu. A little difficult to explain this, but just follow my directions, please. It starts over here on the left with a foam core model, scale 1 inch to a foot. Glass model 1 inch to a foot. The building itself, nothing there yet. So this is the view of the total piece. It's a little difficult. It's 42 feet long and wraps around this atrium area. Okay. So this is the view from the second floor. Now I'm going to show you each wall. The north wall here. So when you're looking at the north wall in that picture 1 here, you see this is a detail of that. The second one is the east wall. You see this is the detail of that wall. That wall is this wall. And then the south wall, that's this piece that comes up over the top. And that comes down also into the bar. And you can see it coming down here into the bar as you're looking up through the piece. A little complicated, but it just turned out so well. Once again, you have to understand, to build this piece, I built the room in the studio because everything has to fit perfectly. I-beam series, these are large projects that came from the small studies you saw earlier. This was Flumine, the river in Latin. This was for Napa Valley Civic Center in front of the building, and then it was sold to Perfect Pure E Corporation. It's 12 feet tall, wavy pieces there. You can see Napa Valley streets. This is a piece for the city of Redlands, okay, just finished 2 years ago. And it's 15 feet tall. You can see me standing here beside the piece at the studio. It's called, in you read the Latin, It means inner beauty. There's a kitchen I did. Yes, a kitchen, a private kitchen. Look at it and see how it's done. You can see some of the detail here. Once again, this kitchen was built in the studio, the poles, the ceiling and everything area. So everything had to be fit perfectly. And then the models, the plywood pieces that were used were taken, and the templates for drilling and cutting and making the whole thing fit in perfectly without any mistakes. So here you can see some of the detail in the piece. I entitled it Cacophonous. Read what that means and then think about the client was difficult. Okay. Private doors for private clients. This is a couple of them. You can see this piece begins with a straight linear form, moves to subtle arcs, moves some more repetitious arcs, and the etching repeats that pattern. The door handle is a repetition of the arcs. This is the door open, so you can see those bullnose polished edges. Okay, and then you can see how that fits perfectly. And here it's the same thing. This is the view from the inside. Linears, forms going from straight to curved, back to straight. This was a piece for a private client, again, in Beverly Hills. The idea for this piece, or the sandblasting idea, came from the glass blocks. You see the linear quality in the glass blocks? That's picked up in the door, and then it just obfuscates itself into total opacity. This is a piece I did for Tom Hudnut at Harvard School. I did it for Harvard School in commemoration of Tom Hudnut's 25-year commitment to the school. A great man, one of my friends, best friends. Believe it or not, this piece, the idea came from fly fishing. Okay, so I'm going to give you one line here, and the rest is left to abstraction. This line follows up and around. This is the movement of the pole, and then the line as it's being laid out for the salmon. Okay, everything else then was added after that concept was put on the drawing board to make this piece. The piece I enjoyed with this was able to use the mirrored stainless steel top covering. You can see it here reflected at night. You can see it here reflected in the daytime. And then you can see a close-up of it. Everything that's up above is mirrored below. I did furniture. Okay, this chair was in an exhibition, was acquired by LACMA in the late 90s for a permanent exhibition. It's in their collection. Once in a while, I get to see it there. Okay, and this idea came from Tim Kroll's wall piece, and these are just different concepts using different metals. The rocking chair, excuse me, okay, and it really works. These don't look comfortable, but they really are. You'd be surprised. You're welcome to buy them and try them. This is the exhibition now that's at the gallery, the Craft in America Center Gallery. This is the window piece. And this is my political and social comment using just the American flag. It picks up on all of the techniques that I've used and integrates them. Okay. The flag series is inspired by several things. One is Congress's inability to function for the people. That's been continuous since, well, within my lifetime. Number two, the Iran-Contra wars, the Vietnam wars too, you know. Number three, the riots in LA. And number four, the poetry and the writings of Langston Hughes, such as his poem Harlem. What Happens to a Dream Deferred? Fantastic. Read it, please. This is Ode to 9/11, 13 states, 13 colonies, over 50 states. This is my Ode to Democracy, POTUS. Thank you, President. This is one of my favorite pieces. Had difficulty exhibiting this piece, can't imagine why. It's Ode to Evangelicals and the 700 Club, Pat Robertson and the boys. Enough of that, you see it. This is Bring Them On. This was Bush's comment, Bush 43, after 3 days after the attack on Iraq. We're still there. Cable wrapped, tortured, tormented punishing pieces, visually and physically tormented work, revealing what I felt has been going on and what's going on now. You get a scale of this piece here. This is a large piece too, but they're all cable wrap pieces expressing the idea using the flag. A few more. This is a piece in the window, a little bit different. You get to see the back view here, and then the slump views on the side. This is Ode to the NRA. There's a real pistol slumped in there, and it's welded to the frame. This is America the Beautiful. I used to sing this song in grade school. The words were so soothing. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain. Boy, is that hypocritical now. Inside this piece is a real rifle. I cut it up and welded it inside and shot the gun before putting the piece together. These are real bullet holes shot through the metal. Hung out to dry. Anybody who grew up before 1970 and who couldn't afford washers and dryers knows where that idea came from. You know, hanging out and drying America. For who? Those in power. This was a proposal I did for the Unknown Soldier Memorial. Obviously, they didn't like it. A little bit too political. Never did it. I titled it Why. Yeah. These are drawings and paintings that I still do, just to keep you. I still do the other techniques of integration. This is the process of a large commission now. So I'm going to take you through what it takes. Okay, the consultant for this project was Zillary Twill, fantastic lady, great friend of Goldie's and mine. This was done to commemorate the life of Harold Held. It was entitled Ventus Vitae, which in Latin means winds of life. Okay, so this is the piece. This is Goldie and I. This is how all projects begin. Everything starts with the pencil and paper. First, the form has to be decided. Once the form has to be decided, the foundation structure has to be decided. So this is after a lot of drawings. So this just to show you that the drawing becomes the model. The model then is where the form ideas, the line form ideas are finalized. From here, this is the final project. Drawing, maquette, project. Absolutely the same. What you see is what you're going to get. This is the final drawing for the foundation structure. I'll explain this venting thing in a minute. This is the other side of this, and this is it finished. You see the other side of the piece exactly like the model. This is how it's done. You start with nothing. The thing we started with was this vent. The vent had to be obfuscated in the construction of the project, so nobody would know it's there. It's the vent, the exhaust vent for the underground parking complex. So my solution was what we ended up doing. There were 12 artists that started this project. 5 were selected to do proposals, and I ended up getting the project. So drawing, built this frame. From there, this construction was finished. You can see it there, ready for the granite. This is a process of the construction. These are cross-cut drawings showing the people building the project and the architects ideas on solutions to where things should be and where they are. So I have to figure out the water, the drawing, the electrical. It all works out. Now the glass comes. I pick the glass up at my fabricators. Now I buy 1-inch thick glass. Okay, pick it up on my truck, unload it with my forklift and crane. Okay, take it in, lay it down, open the crate, take the glass out, set the furnace up, the molds in the furnace. And this is an extremely important part. These come with foam core templates. The foam core template is absolutely necessary in every part of the process. So here you see setting up the foam core template to get the exact location for where the bendings and the stanchions will be holding the piece up and where the bends will be. And then the piece is loaded into the kiln. Here you see me standing in the kiln, ready for bending. Kiln is closed. The forklift lowers the kiln. Glass is turned on. Here, this bend is between 1250 degrees and 1300 degrees until the desired bend is achieved. That's done by observation. Then the kiln was turned off, cooled, and annealed for 3 to 4 days. Kiln was opened up. You see, it worked out, thankfully. Pot is removed from the kiln, taken to the tables on wheels. Everything in the studio is on wheels. You'll see the reasoning, obviously, so I can move things around everywhere. The movable tables in the studio are where all the taping is done. Here you can see a early piece, taping finished, taping in process. Here's me taping. Now, this taping is all done freehand. Ah, that's a shameless plug for the gallery, the sponsor. This is the freehand gallery. Oh, well. The patterns are extremely important, and they are exactly as finalized in the maquettes. I lay them all on by hand. Every line is laid by hand. Okay, so you see the time it takes and the complexity. Once the pieces are done, they're sandblasted. You can see the strength of this glass. I stand on it when I'm taping, okay, and move across it to tape the different pieces. So then it's sandblasted. Then I have the slave labor come in and remove, oh, that's my wife. Remove the tape. If it doesn't work to my desire and to the form, I have to make a new one. And yes, this has happened. It happened once with this project. This is how the piece is now finalized. And now you see the importance of the foam core templates here. Okay, and then setting everything up in the studio. Say the finalization for the 8-ton stainless steel base that I fabricate and the placement of the lighting. So here you see, this is the way the project will end up looking. There's no steel in there yet. This is the foam, the plywood for the templates. So then we set everything up. We take these bottom templates off. Okay, they'll be welded onto the frame later. But we screw these other ones down to the plywood to hold on to the glass as it stands up in the studio. So here you see them. They're screwed down to the plywood. So now we can finalize the lighting, finalize the location of the pieces. This is one of the most important processes. Every process is important, but this is totally integral. Make a mistake here and we got real problems. Now to light this piece, night comes around. The lighting has to be in water buckets because it's underwater lighting. So we move the water buckets around. Here you see where we decided the location of the lighting will be. It's in water buckets. Okay. Now you'll see, I'm going to transfer you to the real project right down below here. That's what it looks like. So you can see the significance of this process. Okay. There's the initial solution. Here's final after everything is done. So once this process is completed, then I had to make the base. These are the drawings for the 4 1-ton stainless steel plates. Here's bringing the 1-ton plates in the studio with a forklift. This is the finalization in drawing form of the plates and the location of the glass and where the stanchions will be. Now, each of these comes from drawings. Here's the drawing up here in the upper right-hand corner. You can see these are the stainless steel covers that go over. These are the upper stanchions. These are the lower stanchions. This is the plate that fits over the top that these two bolt together with. So this is all welded together. Here's a stanchion template so you can see how I build it. So this is laid down. Everything's tightened down to the welding bench and then it's welded. So then I made all of those. Okay, here they are. And they've been welded in the form here. But this is the process. Okay, you see me welding the pieces onto the stainless steel. And this is to show you that these bottom templates here are the welded part. These are the pieces that get bolted on top to anchor the system for its final notations. Okay, this is a quick drawing to show you how the piece all comes together. Okay, the fountain, the water, the 96 anchor bolts, the 8 tons of steel set down on the piece over the lag bolts and bolted down. before the anchor system is put in place, it needs to be sandblasted. So here's the bringing the 2-ton pallet in to the sandblast booth. It's blasted. It has to be sandblasted because the coating, the surface needs to be treated for the waterproofing to adhere, so it can seal everything around the piece and the floor of the fountain. So now, once this phase is done, we bring the pieces to the finished site. Here you see the finished site. Okay, these are the water outlets, the big tubes, the water intakes on the lower part. These are for lighting, and these are the 96 bolts to hold the piece down. So we bring the plates down, lift them with the boom crane in, anchor them in place. Here you see the crane lowering it in. The 96 bolts, the holes being dropped onto the bolts and then bolted down. So we come back a couple weeks later, everything is sealed and finished, the granite is done, and now we begin the final installation. You see the welded pallets, the welded stanchions are here. Now you're going to see the rest of the project. We bring the glass down, lift it up manually. This is pretty well completed. So now you see how these the upper stanchions anchoring the glass are finished and bolted in. Here they're not. The one side is. So we bring the glass in, set it on these little stanchion supports, bring it in, slide 3, lift it up, stand it up, apply the rest of the anchoring system, okay, and then finalize the project with the polished stainless steel covers. And then the boss comes and tells us what we did wrong. She's an incredible inspector, finds little stuff we never saw. This is the way the project looks finished. The elements I was interested in were water, sound, light, natural and synthetic light, movement of the water and movement of the people, reflection and refraction. This is the fountain in daytime. This is the back side of the fountain. Now, this is the seal to that exhaust vent from the basement parking complex. So when you walk around the piece, you can see it differently. I'll show you. This is the piece at night. This is the edge view. You see the water coming over. Really creates a beautiful, subtle sound. The moire patterns are continuously undulating as you move by the piece. Okay. And there's an interaction with the water. There's a reflective quality. There's a sound quality. This is the piece at night again. Piece at day on the other end. Nighttime detail. That's the end. Finished piece, finished piece. Remember, this is how it all starts. Okay, from a slab, a vent, designing everything and then building it. Okay, on behalf of George Orr and myself, thank you for your time. Bye. Thank you for listening. Okay, and there's question and answers next. I have a few more if we get a minute, but let's. I know I'm over time already, so let's do this. Questions?
So,
oops. Okay. Oh well. Okay.
John, thank you
Oh, yeah.
so much as we switch over here.
Okay.
With your screen.
Okay.
So I invite everyone who's attending to put your questions in the chat or the Q&A. Thank you so much. Yes, we are a few minutes over, but feel free.
How close did I get?
That was phenomenal.
It's 55 years now. And I'm really left out a lot. So, okay.
I think there's endless amounts of questions, just project by project. I just was curious to know a little bit about your time at UCLA, going way back. And
I forgot. Laura Andreessen was my ceramics teacher when I was there. What a beautiful woman. God, we became such good friends. I became her plumber in her house even, because she had plumbing problems in an old house built in the 20s, and she couldn't get anybody to fix it. So I went over and did her plumbing for her. Great lady, great friend. And we did all kinds of clay, everything from, raku, earthenware, to stoneware, porcelain, all glazings. I studied all of the glazing and I taught all of those techniques. That's something I forgot to mention too. So my background is just, I've been so lucky to have experienced so many things.
Well, your work is so diverse and you're so versatile in your understanding. How the engineering side of things alone, let alone how you work between so much material, it's just phenomenal. I think Shan Emanuele had asked,
Okay.
I think you showed a picture of your studio,
Yeah,
um, the size of your studio.
it's about 3,000 square feet, has 24-foot ceilings in it. And actually, I designed the studio and I built it. My brother-in-law was a contractor, and Goldie was the superintendent when I was teaching. She was there in the job, making sure the guys were there at 7 in the morning, calling them if they weren't. But it's an incredible studio. I mean, I was lucky, and I actually I never got a grant. Okay, I applied for grants. I never received a grant, and I built it with my own money. Okay, from projects and from work that I sold. So it's another whole thing that people's got to understand is that if I needed to do something, I had to learn how to pay for it.
How did you manage all these projects, which all these commissions must have been incredibly time consuming to handle a
Yeah,
commission, for instance, or a corporate commission? That plus the teach,
yeah.
phenomenal.
I'm sure anybody who taught at Harvard can vouch for me. I never missed school practically in 42 years. I had an appendix rupture early and I missed a week for that. And then I had one other problem later, but I never missed school. I just had a gift that I didn't need to sleep much. And as some people have said, I'm a little bit ADHD. Is that what it is? Okay. My grade school was, I had some bizarre experiences being the manic, continuously never shutting up kid in class. Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's a gift. Some people need to sleep, some don't. And despite what people think, I didn't do drugs. Okay, so it wasn't drugs, and it wasn't coffee because I can't drink coffee. So it's a gift from birth.
Sherry Galki asks how being back to your teaching, how that impacted your work and if it changed anything about your work.
Uh, I kept the two totally separate, and I taught for so many years without any of the kids knowing what I did. Because then when things started getting published, then they would come in and say, "Mr. Luebtow, I saw you here." I didn't want to integrate the two. Okay, so I wanted to be a teacher there. Okay, not some artist outside doing all these projects. Most important thing was me to focus on that job because that's what I was there for. Okay, so I integrated it because I got up at 5 in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning, started working, went to the gym before school every day, and then and went to school, came home after school. I'd take a nap sometimes in the afternoon, and then I'd eat dinner, and then I'd just work in the studio. And it was just, 6, 8 hours every night till 12, 1 in the morning, get up at 4. But I was able to do it. And, it's some people can and some can't. I don't know where it comes from. It's just, it was there. Okay. So I thank whoever made me that way, that I am that way.
Incredible. And our last question, Richard Frank, you mentioned philosophy as an inspiration for your art. Is there a connection between philosophy and your choice of permanent materials that are manipulated in intense heat, but solid under normal life conditions?
That's interesting. I wrote an article for Water Shapes magazine on glass, liquid, or solid. Okay, so I talk about that kind of idea in there. But for me, I was just after the permanence. Once I started to learn that when I welded steel and it was outside, for a short period of time, it started to oxidize. I found permalac. Permalac is a sealant an architectural sealant that they use, which really works well. I've used that on some pieces that needed to have the steel on, but that has to be redone, every 10 years approximately, because it's an amazing material. Anyone can buy it. It's called Permalac. So that was on those, but the permanent materials was because once I made things, I didn't want to go back to them. I didn't want to have to repeat the process and repeat the idea and then get the negativeness of the client. And on one of the projects we did, one commission, we test everything with magnets because it was a fountain, and one of the guys didn't and put in some steel lag bolts. And about 6 months later, I get a call from the client, and he says, one of the brackets on one of the pieces starting to move. And I said, that can't be. I was real sure that can't be. I went in and I took the covers off and I looked down and the bolts were rusted off. And I thought, oh my God, somebody screwed up. And, I fixed it and everything was cool. But always we take magnets and we're going to put bolts in. Everything in the box is checked. So we know it's stainless steel. Then we never have the problem. But so my concept of permanence is mainly because I wanted to see it once. I like going back, of course, but I didn't want to have to deal with it anymore. One and done, as Goldie says, one and done. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you so much, John. You are tremendous, just a visionary and an innovator in so many directions. It's just unbelievable. Thank you to everybody for joining us this evening. Again, this was recorded and will be available on Facebook and also on our YouTube and on Craft America. I want to also thank the California Arts Council for their support, and in addition to the support of our other funders as well. Thank you so much, John. This was phenomenal, and it's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of understanding your work, but gives us all a great overview.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Thank you.